In the 1960s, when families gathered at parks and backyards across America, they didn't just bring food, they brought traditions, stories, and recipes that could feed a crowd without breaking the bank. These weren't just meals, they were survival strategies disguised as delicious comfort food. Today, we're stepping back in time to rediscover 25 forgotten picnic recipes that helped families stretch their dollars while bringing everyone together around the checkered blanket. Ambrosia, sunshine salad. Long before fancy fruit platters and expensive berry bowls became the norm, Ambrosia sunshine salad reigned supreme at family picnics across America. This bright, sweet concoction combined canned mandarin oranges, pineapple chunks, miniature marshmallows, and shredded coconut, all held together with a cloud of Cool Whip, a revolutionary new product that hit shelves in 1966. What made this salad so practical for hardworking families was its affordability and staying power. Every ingredient came from the pantry or lasted for days in the refrigerator, perfect for families who couldn't afford to waste a single morsel. The marshmallows and coconut stretched the fruit, making a little go further to feed more mouths. Mothers would prepare it the night before, letting the flavors meld together in the refrigerator while they tackled 1,000 other tasks. When picnic time came, this salad stood up to the summer heat far better than mayonnaise-based alternatives, giving families one less worry on a day meant for relaxation. Children delighted in its sweet flavor, while parents appreciated how it could be stretched to serve unexpected guests, a common occurrence at community gatherings. But as fresh fruit became more accessible year-round and health concerns about processed foods grew, this beloved sunshine bowl gradually disappeared from our collective gatherings. Miracle Whip deviled eggs. Before protein bars and fancy appetizers, Miracle Whip deviled eggs were the protein-packed starter that stretched precious eggs to feed multiple mouths. In a decade when feeding an entire family on a tight budget wasn't just desirable but essential, these savory bites were nothing short of economic genius. The secret wasn't just in the distinctive tang of Miracle Whip, which was significantly cheaper than mayonnaise, but in how the filling could be fluffed up with a little extra seasoning, making 6 eggs serve a dozen people. Paprika wasn't just for color, it was camouflage for a filling that had been stretched to its limits. Homemakers became experts at boiling eggs to perfection, knowing that rubbery whites or gray-ringed yolks would betray any cutting of corners. They'd pack these protein-rich morsels in specialized plastic containers, prized possessions passed down and borrowed between neighbors for special occasions. These weren't just appetizers, they were edible insurance policies. If the main dish ran short or the weather cut, the picnic short, everyone had at least had something substantial. As convenience foods gained popularity and family sizes shrunk in the following decades, the meticulous art of deviled egg preparation began to fade, taking with it one of the most economical ways to start a family gathering: pineapple cheese casserole. The 1960s was an era when unlikely combinations created some of the most memorable dishes, and pineapple cheese casserole stood proudly among them. This strange-sounding mix of canned pineapple chunks, sharp cheddar cheese, and buttery Ritz cracker topping was the epitome of picnic innovation, transforming affordable ingredients into something that felt special. Born in the southern states, this casserole spread across America as families looked for ways to create memorable dishes without expensive ingredients. What made it perfect for picnics was its versatility. Warm or room temperature, it satisfied as either a side dish or dessert, eliminating the need for multiple recipes. The genius was in its construction. The sweet acid of pineapple cut through the richness of the cheese, while the Ritz crackers, themselves an affordable luxury, provided a buttery texture that elevated the humble ingredients beneath. Families struggling to put food on the table found that this dish could turn pantry staples into something guests would request by name. As American palates evolved toward more distinct sweet and savory categories, this beautiful culinary contradiction began disappearing from gatherings. Modern potlucks rarely feature such boundary-crossing dishes, but those who remember the original still speak of it with genuine affection, not just for its unique flavor, but for how it stretched precious resources while making everyone feel they weren't missing out. Pickle wraps. Long before charcuterie boards dominated social media, pickle wraps were the sophisticated finger food that elevated any picnic spread. This seemingly simple combination, dill pickles spread with cream cheese and wrapped in dried beef slices, was anything but basic in execution or flavor impact. What made these spiraled bites so perfect for 1960s families was their remarkable economy. A few small jars of ingredients could be transformed into dozens of appetizers that looked elegant despite their humble origins. Homemakers would carefully pat dry each ingredient, knowing that excess moisture meant soggy wraps that wouldn't hold up during transport to the park or beach. The salty, tangy, creamy combination satisfied cravings while taking the edge off hunger, buying precious time if the main course was delayed. Children and adults alike would hover near these platters, trying to appear casual while calculating how many they could reasonably take without seeming greedy. As pre-made appetizers began filling grocery freezers in the following decades, the patience required for this meticulous assembly began to seem like an unnecessary effort. But those who experienced the original remember how these wraps represented something special, the transformation of everyday ingredients into something that felt luxurious, despite the economic realities many families faced. Tomato Aspic. An era when refrigeration was the height of modern convenience, tomato aspic showcased culinary mastery through the miracle of gelatin. This savory tomato-based mold combined tomato juice, lemon, celery, and seasoning suspended in a shimmer of gelatin, creating a dish that was as visually impressive as it was practical for outdoor dining. Unlike many dishes that wilted in the summer heat, aspic actually improved after hours on the picnic table, holding its shape while delivering refreshing tanginess. For families without air conditioning, still a luxury for many in the 1960s, this cool, sliceable side provided welcome relief on sweltering days. The recipe's ingenuity lay in its use of economical ingredients transformed through technique rather than expense. Tomato juice, often purchased in large cans at significant savings, became elevated through the addition of fresh lemon and carefully balanced seasonings. The vegetables suspended within weren't just for flavor, they stretched the dish with affordable bulk that still felt sophisticated. Homemakers would proudly unmold these ruby red creations, often using metal molds passed down through generations or purchased with trading stamps saved over months. The compliments received weren't just for the flavor, but acknowledged the skill required to achieve the perfect consistency, firm enough to slice cleanly, but tender enough to melt on the tongue. As American dining became more casual and preparation, time became a luxury few could afford. This once prized picnic staple began its decline. Modern gatherings rarely feature such labor-intensive creations, but those who remember the original understand it wasn't just about food, it was about transformation of the ordinary into something extraordinary through care and technique. Molded. Tuna salad. When protein needed to be stretched to its absolute limits while still satisfying hungry families, molded tuna salad answered the call. This ingenious creation combined a single can of tuna with chopped celery, hard-boiled eggs and gelatin to create a dish that could feed 8 hungry picnickers with dignified portions that never revealed the economic necessity behind them. The gelatin wasn't just for presentation, though the unmolding onto lettuce leaves certainly created a moment of dinner theater. It was crucial for binding and stretching the precious protein. Every ingredient played a role beyond flavor. Celery added essential crunch and bulk, eggs contributed affordable protein, and a touch of onion delivered depth that disguised how far the tuna had been extended. Picnics weren't just recreational in the 1960s. They were economical alternatives to restaurant dining for families watching every penny. This dish allowed them to participate in these social gatherings without revealing financial struggles. Children would return for seconds, never realizing the careful calculations that went into ensuring everyone got enough. As convenience foods proliferated and two-income households had less time for elaborate preparation, this type of resourceful cooking began to fade. Modern tuna salads rarely showcase the impressive transformation and economy of their predecessors, but the lessons of stretching protein without sacrificing dignity remain relevant even today. Ribbon sandwiches. In a decade when appearances mattered deeply but budgets were often tight, ribbon sandwiches were the picnic equivalent of haute couture created from remnants. These multi-layered, crustless creations featured alternating slices of white and wheat bread with different spreads between each layer, creating a visual feast that disguised their economic practicality. The genius was in their construction. Bread ends and broken slices unusable for regular sandwiches found purpose here, pressed firmly between layers of affordable spreads, often made from bits of leftover meats or vegetables mixed with cream cheese. Everything had purpose. Nothing was wasted. The removal of crusts wasn't just for aesthetics. Those trimmings became breadcrumbs for future meals. These colorful creations were typically prepared a day ahead and weighted down overnight, allowing the flavors to meld while creating a firm texture that could be sliced into elegant fingers. Each sandwich served multiple people with modest portions that somehow felt more satisfying than a single, larger sandwich, a psychological trick that helped stretch the family food budget. As packaged lunch meats became more affordable and family schedules more hectic, the time required for this meticulous assembly began to seem impractical. The skill of transforming humble ingredients into something special through technique rather than expense gradually disappeared from our collective knowledge, taking with it a powerful strategy for feeding families both physically and emotionally. Porcupine Meatballs. When meat prices strained family budgets, Porcupine Meatballs offered an ingenious solution that never felt like a compromise. These family favorites combined ground beef with uncooked rice, which absorbed moisture and expanded during cooking, creating hearty meatballs that served many from small amounts of precious protein, named for the way the rice grains poked through the meat as they cooked. Resembling a porcupine's quills, these meatballs were simmered in tomato sauce until tender. The sauce wasn't just for flavor, it provided essential moisture for the rice while stretching the dish even further with affordable canned tomatoes. For picnics, these were ideal make-ahead fare, often prepared the previous day and reheated before packing, allowing the flavors to develop while the family focused on other preparations. Their popularity with children made them especially valuable. There were no battles over getting kids to clean their plates. The real magic happened in the serving. Ladled into bowls with plenty of sauce and perhaps a slice of bread for sopping, each person felt they'd received a generous portion despite the careful rationing of meat. In homes where every penny mattered, this meal delivered satisfaction without revealing the economic calculations behind it. As convenience foods proliferated and two-income households had less time for simmering, these resourceful meatballs gradually disappeared from family gatherings. The knowledge of how to make protein stretch without sacrificing enjoyment began to fade from our collective cookbook. Frosted sandwich loaf. For special picnic occasions when families wanted to impress without breaking the bank, the frosted sandwich loaf delivered theatrical impact from humble ingredients. This showstopper began with an ordinary unsliced sandwich loaf transformed through technique into something extraordinary. The preparation was a testament to resourcefulness. The bread was sliced horizontally rather than vertically, creating large rectangular layers. Between each layer went different spreadable fillings, often made from bits of leftover meat, vegetables, or eggs, mixed with cream cheese to create abundance from scarcity. The entire creation was then frosted with seasoned cream cheese, creating the illusion of a cake. What made this perfect for gatherings was its make-ahead nature and impressive yield. A single loaf could serve 12 to 16 people with elegantly thin slices that somehow felt more satisfying than ordinary sandwiches. Decorations of radish roses, olive slices, or parsley sprigs added flourish without significant expense. Families who struggled to participate equally in community gathering found that this creation brought compliments and recipe requests, never revealing that its origins lay in budget stretching. As pre-made deli platters became more accessible and social expectations shifted, this labor-intensive centerpiece began disappearing from our gatherings, along with the skills required to transform ordinary ingredients into something special. Church. Window cookies. No 1960s picnic was complete without something sweet that could withstand summer heat, and church window cookies answered this need beautifully. These no-bake treats combined melted chocolate chips with colorful miniature marshmallows, rolled into logs and chilled until firm enough to slice into stained glass-like rounds. Their popularity wasn't just about their beauty or flavor, but their remarkable economy and practicality. A single bag of chocolate chips and marshmallows could produce dozens of cookies without ever turning on the oven, a significant consideration in homes where summer cooking heat was best avoided and electricity costs carefully monitored. Mothers would often prepare these days ahead, storing the logs wrapped in wax paper in the refrigerator. Children would eagerly await the moment of slicing when the colorful marshmallow windows were revealed. The cookies traveled well in metal tins, requiring no special handling and remaining intact even after hours in varying picnic conditions. As packaged cookies became more affordable and elaborate homemade desserts came into fashion, these simple treats began to fade from gatherings. The visible economy of their ingredients perhaps became less appealing as abundance replaced scarcity in American households, but those who remember them recall not just their taste, but the excitement of seeing those bright windows revealed with each slice. Pressed chicken loaf. In an era when nothing could go to waste, pressed chicken loaf transformed leftover roast chicken into an elegant cold entree worthy of the finest picnic spreads. This ingenuity disguised thrift as culinary sophistication, allowing families to participate in community gatherings with dignity despite tight budgets. The preparation process was a marathon of resource maximization. Every scrap of meat was carefully pulled from a chicken carcass that had already served the family at least once. This meat was chopped and combined with gelatin, a small amount of mayonnaise, and finely diced celery and peppers that provided both flavor and bulk. The mixture was then packed into a loaf pan and weighted down overnight, creating slices that held together beautifully on a picnic plate. What made this dish remarkable was its transformation of necessity into virtue. The gelatin wasn't just binding, it created a texture that felt intentional rather than economical. The vegetables weren't merely fillers, they added color and crunch that enhanced the eating experience. Even the pressing wasn't only practical, it created a firm texture that sliced cleanly without crumbling. For families struggling to maintain social connections while watching every penny, this dish allowed participation in community gatherings without revealing financial constraints. As convenience foods became more accessible and leisure time more valuable than food dollars, this type of intensive repurposing began to disappear from our collective skill set. Perfection salad. Few dishes exemplify 1960s picnic ingenuity. Better than perfection salad, a creation that transformed humble cabbage into a conversation piece. This molded gelatin salad suspended finely shredded cabbage, carrots, and bell peppers in a sweet tart lemon gelatin, creating a side dish that was as practical as it was visually striking. The brilliance of this recipe lay in its ability to stretch inexpensive vegetables into a larger volume through the addition of gelatin, while simultaneously improving their keeping quality for outdoor dining. The acid in the lemon juice and gelatin actually cooked the cabbage slightly, softening it while preserving its crunch. Food science before such terms were common. Homemakers would often prepare this a day in advance, allowing it to set overnight. in metal molds that created decorative shapes, many passed down through generations or collected using trading stamps. The unmolding process became a moment of reveal, with the success of the perfect release being a point of quiet pride. The salad took its name from its perceived nutritional completeness, providing vegetables in an era when fresh produce wasn't always accessible year-round. As refrigeration improved and fresh, crisp vegetable salads became possible even in summer heat, this once innovative solution began to seem unnecessarily complex. The knowledge of how to transform everyday cabbage into something special gradually faded from our collective memory. Spam spread pinwheels. When protein was precious, but social obligations couldn't be ignored, Spam spread pinwheels offered a solution that transformed one can of meat into dozens of elegant appetizers. This resourceful creation combined finely minced Spam with cream cheese, pickle relish, and seasonings, spread thinly on bread, rolled tightly, and sliced into colorful spirals. The economics were impressive. A single can of Spam, itself an affordable protein option, could yield enough pinwheels to contribute meaningfully to a gathering when combined with inexpensive fillers. The rolling and slicing technique transformed simple ingredients into something that looked special, allowing families to participate in potlucks without revealing financial constraints. The popularity of these pinwheels also stemmed from their practicality. They could be made hours ahead and chilled, actually improving as the flavors melded. The firm texture of the filling meant they held their shape at room temperature, crucial for picnics in an era before insulated coolers were common in every household. As convenience foods proliferated and processed meats fell from favor, these resourceful creations began disappearing from gatherings. The skills required to stretch protein through technique rather than quantity gradually faded from common knowledge, taking with them a strategy that had helped generations participate in community life regardless of economic circumstances. Party. Cheese ball. When dairy needed to stretch further than seemed possible, the party cheese ball emerged as a picnic hero. This ingenious creation combined a modest amount of cheese with cream cheese and seasonings, shaped into a sphere and rolled in chopped nuts or herbs, creating an appetizer that served dozens from ingredients that might otherwise only satisfy a few. The brilliance wasn't just in the stretching of expensive cheese with more affordable cream cheese, but in the presentation. Formed into a ball and decoratively coated, a small amount of cheese mixture created a centerpiece that people approached differently than they would a simple plate of sliced cheese. Guests naturally took smaller portions, making the resource go further without anyone feeling deprived. These cheese balls were typically prepared days ahead, allowing flavors to develop while freeing the host to focus on other preparations. The firm texture held up beautifully during transport and hours on the picnic table, a critical feature in the days before reliable refrigeration at outdoor events. As pre-made deli spreads became more affordable and preparation time became more valuable than food savings, the homemade cheese ball began its decline. The community knowledge of how to create abundance from scarcity through technique and presentation gradually disappeared from our collective skill set. Watergate Salad. Though it emerged late in the decade, Watergate Salad quickly became a picnic essential that stretched costly ingredients with more affordable alternatives. This sweet side dish or dessert combined pistachio pudding, mix with crushed pineapple, miniature marshmallows, and Cool Whip, creating a light, refreshing option that could withstand summer heat. The economy of this dish wasn't immediately apparent but was significant. Pistachios, expensive on their own, were represented only by the flavoring in the pudding mix. The crushed pineapple added bulk and moisture with just one can. The marshmallows and Cool Whip created volume and mouthfeel that made small portions feel satisfying. Named either for its cover-up of affordable ingredients or the Washington Hotel, Stories vary. This dish became a conversation starter as well as a budget solution. For families who couldn't afford elaborate desserts but didn't want to arrive empty-handed, Watergate Salad offered a way to participate with dignity in community gatherings. As fresh fruits became more accessible year-round and concerns about processed foods grew, this sweet creation began disappearing from picnic tables. The knowledge of how to create festive dishes from affordable, shelf-stable ingredients gradually faded from our collective recipe files, taking with it strategies that had helped families navigate economic challenges without social isolation. English monkey. Despite its curious name, English monkey was once a picnic classic that transformed stale bread, something no 1960s household would dare waste, into a savory dish reminiscent of Welsh rarebit. This resourceful creation combined bread cubes soaked in milk with melted cheese, eggs, and seasonings, creating a spread that could be prepared ahead and served with crackers. The genius was in its transformation of items that might otherwise be discarded. Bread, too stale for sandwiches, found new purpose. Small amounts of cheese were stretched further than they could go on their own, and the result was a protein-rich offering that satisfied hungry picnickers without straining tight budgets. What made this ideal for gatherings was its adaptability. It could be served warm from a thermos or at room temperature, spreading easily on crackers or bread. The soft texture made it accessible for everyone from young children to elderly relatives who might struggle with harder foods. As bread became less expensive and more routinely discarded, and as cheese became more affordable through industrial production, the need for such resourceful repurposing diminished. The skill of transforming food past its prime into something desirable gradually disappeared from our kitchens, taking with it both practical knowledge and the satisfaction of creating something from what others might consider nothing. Stuffed celery boats. When protein was scarce but social obligations couldn't be ignored, stuffed celery boats offered a solution that was both economical and elegant. These simple yet effective appetizers filled crisp celery stalks with various spreads, from cheese mixed with cream cheese to pimiento cheese or deviled ham, creating finger food that satisfied without requiring expensive ingredients. The brilliance lay in the celery itself, an affordable vegetable that provided crunch, fiber, and a vessel that made small amounts of protein-rich fillings feel more substantial. The hollow shape of the stalk meant less filling was needed than for crackers or bread, stretching precious resources further. These appetizers could be prepared hours ahead and chilled, allowing busy hosts to focus on other preparations. The firm texture held up during transport and hours on the picnic table, a critical feature in the days before reliable refrigeration at outdoor events. For families watching every penny, these boats allowed participation in community gatherings without revealing financial constraints. The variety of possible fillings meant that even leftover bits of this and that could become part of an impressive spread. As pre-packaged snacks became more affordable and preparation time more valuable than food savings, these resourceful creations began to fade from our gatherings. The knowledge of how to create abundance from scarcity gradually disappeared from our collective skill set. Ham mousse. When a small amount of leftover ham needed to stretch to feed many, ham mousse offered a solution that elevated necessity to elegance. This resourceful creation pureed ham with gelatin, mayonnaise, and seasonings, creating a spread or molded centerpiece that transformed a few ounces of meat into a dish that could serve a dozen or more. The ingenuity wasn't just in stretching the protein, but in transforming its texture. The whipping incorporated air, increasing volume without additional ingredients. The gelatin provided body and stability, allowing it to hold its shape for hours at room temperature, crucial for picnics before reliable cooling was commonplace. For families where meat was a carefully budgeted luxury, This preparation allowed them to participate fully in community gatherings without revealing financial constraints. The molded presentation, often garnished with parsley or pimiento for color, conveyed abundance rather than scarcity. As convenience foods proliferated and two-income households had less time for elaborate preparation, these resourceful techniques began to fade. Modern gatherings rarely feature such labor-intensive transformations of modest ingredients, but the principles behind them, stretching resources through technique rather than quantity, remain relevant even today. Crown jewel dessert. When dessert needed to impress but the budget was tight, crown jewel dessert, also known as broken glass dessert, answered the call. This stunning creation combined colorful cubes of gelatin suspended in a creamy white background, sliced to reveal what looked like stained glass or jewels. The economy was cleverly disguised as elegance. Different flavors of gelatin among it. The most affordable dessert options available were prepared separately and cut into cubes. These were then suspended in a mixture of whipped topping and more gelatin, creating a sophisticated-looking dessert from humble ingredients. What made this perfect for picnics was its make-ahead nature and stability. Prepared a day or more in advance, it actually improved as the layers set. The firm texture held up during transport and hours at room temperature, better than many alternatives, making it practical as well as impressive. For families struggling to participate equally in community gatherings, this dessert brought compliments and recipe requests, never revealing that its origins lay in budget stretching. As pre-made desserts became more accessible and social expectations shifted, this labor-intensive creation began disappearing from our gatherings, along with the skills required to transform ordinary ingredients into something special. Salmon loaf. When fresh fish was financially out of reach but protein was still needed, Salmon Loaf offered a solution that transformed canned salmon into a dignified main dish. This resourceful creation combined 1 or 2 cans of salmon with the breadcrumbs, eggs, and seasonings baked into a sliceable loaf that could be served hot or cold. The ingenuity went beyond simply extending the fish. Every part of the canned salmon was utilized, including the soft bones which were mashed into the mixture, providing calcium that might otherwise be lacking in budget-conscious diets. The addition of breadcrumbs and milk stretched the protein, while creating a texture that sliced cleanly for serving. For picnics, this loaf was ideal. It actually improved in flavor when made ahead and chilled, and its firm texture meant it traveled well and held up on the plate without crumbling. Often served with a simple white sauce made from pantry staples, it provided substantial nutrition without revealing financial constraints. As convenience foods proliferated and preparing meals from scratch became less common, this type of resourceful cooking began to fade. Modern families rarely possess the skills to transform canned ingredients into dishes that feel intentional rather than merely economical. A loss of knowledge that once helped generations navigate financial challenges with dignity. Lime Jello, marshmallow cottage cheese surprise. Perhaps no dish better exemplifies 1960s picnic innovation than the improbable combination known as lime Jello marshmallow cottage cheese surprise. This creation suspended miniature marshmallows and cottage cheese in lime gelatin, creating a dish that straddled the line between salad and dessert, while stretching protein in unexpected ways. The brilliance was in its economics. Cottage cheese, an affordable protein source, was extended significantly through the addition of gelatin and marshmallows. The result was a dish that provided nutrition while satisfying sweet cravings, all while holding up beautifully in summer heat. What made this particularly suitable for family gatherings was its versatility. It could be served as a side dish alongside savory foods or as a light dessert, providing multiple functions from a single recipe. The bright green color added visual appeal to the spread without additional expense. As clearer boundaries between sweet and savory became established and processed foods fell from favor, this once popular dish faded from our gatherings. The willingness to combine seemingly disparate ingredients in service of both nutrition and economy disappeared from our collective approach to feeding families. Glorified rice. When dessert was expected but the pantry was nearly bare, glorified rice came to the rescue of countless 1960s households. This simple yet satisfying treat combined cooked rice with crushed pineapple, miniature marshmallows, and whipped cream or Cool Whip, transforming a staple grain into something special enough for company. The economics were impressive. A cup of rice, which might normally serve as a side dish for four, could be transformed into a dessert serving 3 times as many people. The addition of a small can of pineapple provided both sweetness and acidity, while the marshmallows and whipped topping created a luxurious mouthfeel from minimal ingredients. For families where sugar was carefully rationed and treats were rare, this dessert felt indulgent despite its humble origins. Children would eagerly request it, never realizing it was born of necessity rather than indulgence. The make-ahead nature and stability at room temperature made it ideal for outdoor gatherings in the days before portable refrigeration was common. As packaged desserts became more affordable and the connection between food preparation and resource management weakened, these ingenious transformations began to disappear from our tables. Modern families rarely possess the knowledge of how to create something special from ordinary ingredients, a skill that once helped generations navigate scarcity with creativity. Bean bundles. When meat was too expensive to serve as the main protein but a filling dish was needed, bean bundles stepped in to save countless picnics. These ingenious parcels wrapped green beans and a small amount of bacon in a bread dough, creating handheld packages that satisfied hunger while stretching precious bacon beyond what seemed possible. The economics were impressive. Just 2 or 3 slices of bacon crumbled and mixed with the beans imparted smoky flavor throughout the bundle. The bread dough, made from inexpensive flour and yeast, provided filling carbohydrates, while the green beans added nutrition and bulk. Together, they created a complete meal in a portable form. What made these perfect for gatherings was their self-contained nature. No plates or utensils were required, essential considerations for families who might not have enough to go around. They could be eaten warm or at room temperature, and the bread casing helped retain moisture in the filling even after hours on the picnic table. As convenience foods proliferated and meat became more affordable, the need for such resourceful stretching of protein diminished. The knowledge of how to create satisfying meals with minimal animal protein gradually disappeared from our collective skill set, taking with it strategies that had helped families navigate economic challenges without compromising nutrition. Cold, fried chicken. No 1960s picnic repertoire was complete without cold fried chicken, not just as a delicious main dish, but as an exercise in household economics. In an era when chicken was still relatively expensive compared to other proteins, the preparation and serving of this picnic classic involved careful calculations that modern cooks rarely consider. Unlike today's practice of using only specific parts, a 1960s chicken for frying was always a whole bird cut up at home to maximize yield. Every part found purpose, even the back and neck went into stock for future meals. The coating wasn't just for flavor. The flour, often seasoned with paprika as much for color as taste, created an impression of volume that made modest portions more satisfying. What made cold fried chicken perfect for picnics was its improved flavor after chilling. The seasonings mellowed and penetrated the meat more thoroughly. This wasn't just culinary preference, but practical advantage, allowing preparation the previous day when household energy demands were lower. For families where meat appeared on the table less frequently than they might wish, cold fried chicken at a picnic represented both treat and strategy. a way to serve protein that felt generous while actually controlling portions through careful cutting and arrangement in the basket. As pre-cooked options became widely available and food preparation skills declined, the economic calculations and resource management behind this classic began to fade from our collective knowledge. Checkerboard sandwiches. When appearances mattered but budgets were tight, checkerboard sandwiches offered a solution that transformed humble ingredients into visual art. These labor-intensive creations combined white and dark bread, sliced and reassembled into patterns that made simple fillings seem special. The ingenuity wasn't just visual, it was deeply practical. The precise cutting and reassembling meant that less filling was needed between layers, stretching precious ingredients like meat spreads or cheese further than conventional sandwiches would allow. The geometric patterns naturally created smaller portions that still felt satisfying through their visual interest. For families struggling to participate equally in community gatherings, these distinctive sandwiches brought admiration and conversation, never revealing the economic necessity behind their creation. Children who might have complained about plain sandwiches eagerly accepted these architectural marvels, not realizing they were consuming less filling in the process. As pre-made options became more affordable and leisure time more valuable than food savings, the skills required for this type of transformation began to disappear. Modern gatherings rarely feature such labor-intensive presentations, but those who remember them recall not just their appearance, but how they represented care and creativity despite limited resources. The 1960s picnic wasn't just about food, it was about survival strategies disguised as delicious tradition. These forgotten recipes remind us of a time when families created abundance from scarcity, dignity from necessity, and community despite constraints. Perhaps in today's challenging economic climate, these resourceful approaches deserve a second look, not just for their nostalgia, but for their practical wisdom. If you enjoyed this journey through America's picnic past, please like and subscribe to our channel for more forgotten food histories. Each recipe tells a story not just about food, but about how families navigated challenges while keeping tradition and togetherness at the heart of the table. Let us know in the comments which of these forgotten classics you remember or might want to try.